Thanks, me. Yes, it's me, a white, middle-aged, middle-class, cis, fucking privileged guy talking to you about bias in AI. Why? Because like Taylor Swift says, I'm the problem, it's me. All right, so about a year ago, we started to see these text-to-image generators like Stable Diffusion come along, and initially they were a bit like a dog walking on its hind legs, but they soon got really, really good. And one of the early kind of playgrounds in this space was actually called Playgrounds AI. And in it, you could kind of create prompts and then get people to vote on the images you created. But I quickly noticed something, and I'm not sure if you do too, but the images they created were really often of women, really young women, and really sexualized, even when they were actually supposed to be robots and aliens, all right? So I started to think, is this something to do with the people creating the images and voting on them? Or is there something more inherent in the models themselves? A sort of male gaze, an objectification of women deeply embedded in there. So I thought, well, how can I think about this? Now, you might be asking, well, does this actually really matter? I mean, after all, we've objectified women for millennia, right? So why does it matter now? But I actually think it does matter now more than ever. And it's because of this handy and very catchy little four-letter algorithm, RLHF. So reinforcement learning with human feedback is basically how we as humans train these models to give us what we want, all right? So we're in the loop. We're responsible here. And so I think, as tonight has shown, where so many of the slides are all generated by these image generators, how we're seeing them in our advertising and elsewhere, we should really think carefully about what's happening here before we just give it all over to them. So I thought about, how can I do an experiment to uncover what biases are actually in these models? And so what I did was I used ChatGPT, it's kind of ironic, to give me a whole bunch of descriptions of humans that were gender and ethnicity neutral. And it gave me back things like a charismatic individual with a contagious smile, or a diligent and detail-oriented person. And then I took these and pumped them into these text image generators. And what I got out was kind of surprising. It wasn't so much the male gaze as the male, right? As you can see there, almost all the images generated, regardless of the prompts, were actually of men. In fact, there were more animals than women, right? And even when it was a really stereotypically feminine kind of prompt, like a nurturing and caring person, it gives me 3 women and an elephant. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. But so it started me thinking a bit more deeply about the biases in there. So what I did was I gave it some really, really simple ones. Give me a doctor, give me a nurse, give me, those sorts of things. And obviously very, very stereotyped things came out. Doctors and CEOs are all men, and nurses and pharmacists are all women. But then I asked it, well, give me an attractive CEO. Turns out, something strange happened there, but they're all still men. Okay, how about an attractive nurse? Let's see what happens now. Can you imagine? Right. Suddenly they all happen to turn blonde. Right? But they're all white. All right? And they're all from some episode of Call the Midwife. But anyway. So what on earth is actually going on here with these models? Well, I'm going to give you one other example, because most were a bit more like this. At the top, these are tax consultants. They're all men. Well, there's one woman over the side. The bottom are attractive tax consultants. Suddenly they're all young women, although this one doesn't even have a head. She's just like... But they're not blonde. I don't know what's going on there. Right, but there's a deeper bias that's really going on here. Have a look. They're all white. They're all Western context. This is what these models think the world look like. And when we ask them to give us back an image of ourselves, that's what they do. Because we're the problem, right? This recent appalling thing called Smash or Pass from yet another Harvard graduate, which gets you to rate women, so we train these algorithms about what attractive looks like, is an example. Because the H, the human in RLHF, is really important, and that's us. We're in there, we're training these models. We're giving them input, and then we're rewarding them for their output. And unless all of us in this room, people like us, are aware of that and make sure we don't supercharge these biases, we're just going to have a runaway from the bias that we've seen for the last 4 millennia. So that's what I give you tonight. Be very careful what you do with these models.